Hey, so hi everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the stats from Bloodlines that we have. So this is end of season 1, and I think that yeah, at this point in time, I think it's okay to share some of the stats. One reason why I don't think we want to share the stats too early is that we want kind of like the meta to develop a bit more organically, and we can see like some of the things that some players have figured out and how they have figured out it ahead of other players, and in some sense they get to maintain their advantage for longer periods of time. With the end of like MDM spring as well, and now also the end of the ranked season, I think it's a good time to talk about the data, and I think like we can let the data we can let the players who like data also to study the data and also to improve on their play based on the data. So we'll be sharing the data set. I'll put it into the comments on maybe I'll dump it into Google Sheet, and then you can go and assess it yourself. So here we have the data, and I will run through it in this manner. I'll run through in terms of popularity, win rate, positional data, and then win rate by position. One thing to note is that so we have about 4,000 games in the system. I mean like 12,000 leaders picked, so about 4,000 games. So position data actually is not win rate by position is not great, but we'll talk about it later. So in terms of popularity, I think let's just look down the list. So the popular leaders, I think like top 5 we have Hasimer, Fenring, Kota, Esma, Liat, Muad'Dib, and yeah, then 6 is like Staban. And the leaders that are unpopular, like so most popular, like let's say is near the 1,000 range, and the ones that are like below 400, you have Chani, Shaddam, Jessica, and then you have some which are around the 500 range, like Gaius, Margot, Steersman, Fate, and Amber. So one thing that popularity does tell you about leaders that one that people like, okay, and ones that people think are strong. All right, so sometimes they duplicate, right, and because of that, like their play rate is exceptionally high. So I think like the leaders that people think are strong, right, normally like you can see them like in the top 5 or anything above 800. I think you can think like they are in 2/3 of your games. So yeah, people think that they are strong. So things like Fenring, Kota, Esma, Liat, Staban, Muad'Dib, and Gurney. So when we talk about the stats for Bloodlines, I think the baseline that we have to talk about first is for Uprising. Okay, this is going to be a long video, okay, so this is for like Dune nerds who really like this, and this is my full breakdown of it. So first things first is like these 3 leaders, so Muad'Dib, Staban, and Gurney. I think these are the 3 leaders that near the end of Uprising have shown to be really strong leaders. So Muad'Dib, I think, is the biggest culprit of this. Muad'Dib has like the highest win rate in Uprising by a large margin, and followed by Gurney. And when Staban is picked, Staban does very well, but Staban wasn't picked too often in Uprising because I think he was quite Imperium rule dependent. But these are like, I think, the 3 strongest leaders in Uprising, and now we can see how the stats translate over to Bloodlines as well. People still think they are strong, and they still feel strong, and hence they are picked quite a fair bit. So whereas for the new leaders, right, you have Fenring, Kota, Esma, and Liat. So what do all these leaders do? All these leaders actually generate resources in one way or another. Fenring trashes things, and his ring trashes and gets him Solari. Kota's ring gives her spice. Esma's ring gives him spice. Liat ring gives her Solari or spice. Right, so they're all high resource generating leaders, and I think the ones that are popular especially is like Fenring, who has a trashing mechanic, and trashing is a very, very popular mechanic. And Kota has this tech idea that she has going for her, and techs are also a very popular mechanic, and such. I think that's why you see these 2 leaders like out in front as well. But yeah, when you look at this, I think one thing to note is that people think that these leaders are strong, and these leaders are strong because of resources. So that should also tell you something about Bloodlines. Bloodlines is a very resource-intensive game, and I think we can go look at the board later to go and study it or talk about it in another video. But the idea of like resources are good in Uprising, I think it can be demonstrated by how some of the leaders are popular. Okay, so and then maybe you can see how it translates to win rate as well. Some of the unpopular leaders, I think like Shaddam and Jessica in base Uprising also aren't too popular leaders. Like I think Shaddam and Jessica always like vie for like lowest win rate, and as such, there's no new carrot in front of them for Uprising or in Bloodlines that makes someone want to play it. In fact, there are more new shiny badges in terms of the new shiny leaders to play, and that like Shaddam and Jessica are just less played even. Okay, and then after next you have Chani. So Chani is one of the new leaders who isn't picked very often, and I think that I guess when people first play her, she like her mechanics doesn't sound exciting to anyone, and it doesn't have like some of the hooks. So when I talk about that, I think like some of the other leaders, like let's say Steersman and Moheim, I don't think like Chani is like worse than them, but as you can see, like Moheim and Steersman have their own hook. Like they are both very interesting leaders, and because that you have players who specifically want to play them. Like Gaius in particular, like gets a lot of people who to want to play her, and Steersman also is very interesting to some players, and some players really gravitate towards Steersman. And so I think this is quite interesting to see. So Amber used to be a leader that hasn't been picked a lot in Uprising, but is picked a lot more in Bloodlines. Not significantly more, but a little bit more. And I think that there's a change because now Amber has a hook. There's like you can retreat your commanders, and because like there's this additional incentives, like this old badge is shiny again because like the new mechanics kind of interact with her power of retreating troops, and then you can like get you can get like spies or troops from your commander, then retreat it, and these are things feel good. So yeah, you see Amber being played more, and so that's based on popularity, and popularity once again translates to what people think are strong. Okay, so so people still think the Uprising trio are strong. Okay, so what I mean by this, I mean that so this is Dit, Gurney, and Staban. Okay, and the people think that resource generation is powerful, right? So this is what people think. Okay. And you can see this by the leaders. So let's talk about win rate. I think this is like why you mainly tuned into this video. Okay, so let's talk about win rate. So let's just look through the win rate so we can put in count of placement. You can split up the placements, and let's just do a sort in some ways. Equals to be D28 divided by J28 or H28. So then we can color format it, and then we can change it to percentages. Yep. And then we can copy the leaders across. Leaders. Win rate. Let's do a quick sort. Filter, sort from largest to smallest. Okay. Okay, I need to copy this as values. Okay, so I think in terms of win rates, right, we have Staban, which is like highest win rate. Does it surprise anyone? And I think we can talk about why his win rate is higher. And then you have like a bunch of leaders, I think, which are really good. So I think like anything like there's a clear line here, right? I think like these leaders are really good, and then like Liat is probably like can be bucketed either way. So you have your S tier leaders, right? I think which is around 30%, right? So you have Staban, you have Fenring or Hasimer, you have Paita, Kota, and okay, then your A tier, I guess, will be your Esma, Liat, and I guess Amber. Alright. So one thing is that you have to note is that maybe I can unhide and hide. Popularity. Look up value. Look up arrays. Here, exact match. Do index. Index this. Something is wrong. Oh, I need to lock the table. And I want to match it to D. Okay. So let's say if you're looking at this data now, right? So you can see that in terms of popularity, right? No wait, this is the wrong. Is this the right? No, I don't want D. I want H. Okay, so the more green it is, the more popular it is, right? And generally, when you have a higher pick rate, you expect the win rate to go down a bit, right? So let's say Staban is like pick less, but yeah, his win rate is higher. And then you have like Fenring and Kota, which are quite close, but because they pick so much, you expect their win rate to go down. It's just yeah, it just happens that way at the high level because like people are more willing to pick in bad positions or in any position, whereas like the leaders that are picked less are picked in more specific positions, right? And let's talk about, I guess, the leaders that are weak, right? So you have like these like near 20% win rate leaders, and I guess the leaders that are weak are Fate, Shaddam, Jessica, and Gaius. I don't think like anyone really wants to talk about them too much, but so Staban, Hesma, Paita, Kota, Esma, Liat, Amber. So in terms of popularity, right, the ones that stand out are like Paita and Amber probably, right? And then after that you have a bunch of these leaders who are not popular. And Chani actually has a respectable win rate at 24%. So Staban, I think we have to talk about Staban. Why is Staban doing well? What are Staban weaknesses? So Staban weaknesses, right? is that he has no Diplo. So in Uprising, when you have no Diplo, what happens is that you cannot get your faction points easily, right? And you cannot get your faction points easily, and you don't even have a way to get hooks, right? You don't even get a way to get hooks, so it's like hard for you to go a full combat path as well. So you're very role dependent, and you want very specific cards. And I think people would play it when they see certain spy cards which have spy access, because the Staban's strengths, right? His ring is really powerful. You get spy, you get resources. And as you can see, right, based on like the popularity or like the leaders that are doing are great. So a lot of the leaders that are doing great have ways to generate resources. So all these leaders, the ones I'm highlighting in blue now, have ways to generate resources in one, maybe not Python, but we can talk about Python later, right? Have ways to generate resources in one way or another. So, and after that, like, and I guess the spy placement is flexible. So Saban's strength actually is really coming from resource generation, I feel, in Bloodlines. And the reason why it is strong, right, is that in Bloodlines, there are many ways for you to spend your Solari and your spice. In base Uprising, when you think about Staban, like, you might collect a lot of spice, but what are you using your spice for? Okay, maybe somehow you have another faction bump and you get the spacing friendship. Then you spend all your spice to go shipping, right? And shipping gives you like a faction bump, it gives you Solari. Then what are you going to use your Solari for? Like, to get Swordmaster, to get High Council, but after that, like, what is Solari for? Maybe for you to go privilege, right? But you still need that. He needed a goodbye. He needed some card to kind of make his deck work in base Uprising. If not, he had a very clear weakness, right? He had no faction access, he had no faction points. However, in Bloodlines, right, because there's so much more ways for you to spend spice. Like, the other ways for you to spend spice is like Highliner or Sardaukar mainly, right? Or maybe you can go Espionage as well. But you need cards. You can't do that with Staban normally. You have to buy a card that allows you to do it, right? So spice you need for Highliner, for Sardaukar. But now there's so many ways to spend your spice because of so why Staban is good now? Tax, right? Tax allow him to spend his spice, and because he's able to spend his spice quite freely now, right? He no longer is required to get a faction access card that allows him to spend his spice. He no longer has to fight with other players to spend their spice. So it's not as though like everyone is like queuing up to go to the Highliner, or everyone is queuing up to go to Sardaukar, or like everyone has so many ways of spending spice now that the places to spend spice are more open. The places, and there are more places to spend Solari as well. High Council, Swordmaster, getting all the commanders, recruiting the commanders again. So because of that, like, I think in general there are ways to spend resources, and this mitigates a lot of the weaknesses that he has. The spice can turn into various rewards from the text that can give you faction bumps, can give you other sorts of rewards, can give you combat strength, can gives you a lot of other passives. So what Staban struggled with, like, to spend his resources last time, now he doesn't need a good buy to spend his resources, and that's why Staban is good. And I think that's why his win rate is significantly higher than the rest. I think this is it's not Tessia levels. It's not Tessia levels were for bad. Tessia was like very popular and like at like a 37% win rate. This is like Ilban levels bad. If you're talking about like XMO, right? I think Ilban was like 32 to 34% for most of his lifetime, and even after players are trying to block him. And so if you do see a Staban in your game now, know that Stepan is strong, and Stepan is one of the leaders that you should actually plan to fight against. Okay, so this is for Stepan. Maybe I can park it one side. Okay, then after that we have I think Fenring, Kota, both are strong, and I think we can talk about them in terms of resources, right? So both of them get resources, and maybe talk about why are resource leaders good. Okay, so resource leaders are good because there are ways to spend resources, right? So techs, commanders, highliner, Sadaka, right? So many ways of like spending your resources. High Council is good, Swordmaster is good, right? And because there's so many ways of spending your resources, like these advantages have always been advantages in Dune have always been a short race, right? You want to get them first, and I think like from base Dune to Uprising, like the Swordmaster is a bit more interesting because like you don't really need to get Swordmaster first, but everything else, right, you still want to get first. You still want to like get the commanders first. You want to like get High Council first, and being able to like step up ahead of someone just by having that slight push, right, allows you to get these advantages and allow you to snowball that much quicker. So this is why resource leaders are good, alright? And yeah, so I think this should help you think about Bloodlines in a way also that you can pick these leaders and you should leverage these leaders to get certain advantages, right? You get and so are you getting techs? Are you getting commanders? Are you getting Swordmaster? Are you getting High Council? Like what are you translating your advantage into? And that's how you should think about these resources. So we have now talked about the next two, right, which is Amber and Biter. Let's talk about Amber first. So why is Amber good or decent? Well, this stumps me. When I look at this data, right, I mean like Amber's not picked very often, but it's not like it's barely picked. Like it's still picked pretty often, and what this tells me, right, is that probably commanders are way better than what people think they are, right? I think if you're playing Amber, the likelihood that you buy a commander is really high, and the likelihood that you buy a commander commanders are good or commanders are better than expected, right? So the likelihood that you buy a commander when you're playing Amber, I think is higher. And if that is leading you to a high win rate, I'm not sure whether is it Amber that's causing it, or is it the commanders that are causing it. Like, is it like does Amber facilitate a play pattern that causes her to do well, or is Amber just stronger, right? I think also, right, when you play Amber, like the type of commanders you want to see are reveal resources, which is mainly spice, right? Spice, troops, persuasion. So yeah, so spice, troops, persuasion probably in that priority as well. So the reveal commanders are really strong, and I guess they are even stronger on Amber. And yeah, so I think so this learning point, I think, is less about Amber and more about commanders. Commanders are better than what when I read this data, this is my interpretation of it. This is my hypothesis. Whether it is true or not, I don't think we have the exact data. But all Amber has is like Solari on her ring, right? Which I guess is resources, right? So I guess she is somewhat a resource leader, but a relatively weaker resource leader, but still a resource leader, and so resources are good. And then additionally, I think that Amber players generally find themselves buying commanders, and I guess if Commanders leads to a higher win rate, then yeah, Amber players are doing something right. Okay, so this is why I think so. So Pyther. So Pyther is one of the leaders that actually is not unpopular, but it's not super popular. I mean, it's at around the 600 range. So what makes Pyther good? Right? So Pyther's ring, right, is like Gurney's ring, but you can't deploy the troop, alright? And I guess Gurney's ring is good. Right, and then he has a bunch of intrigues, and a bunch of intrigues lets him do many things. So with Pyther, I'm not exactly sure why he is good, but I do think that people need to look at his intrigues and rate them higher. So I think players should like people currently probably think that Pyther intrigues aren't great, but I think the stats show that his intrigues are actually decent, right? And let's say even if they are half an intrigue through the game, over the course of the game you get three and a half intrigues, which is actually pretty good value, right? I think Pyther players also try to go privilege a fair bit. Maybe that's something that should be thought about as well. And just like flexibility of Pyther is good. The ways I find myself losing to Pyther the most, right, is that I lose to either a combat Pyther or a great buy Pyther. So great buys meaning that like there's the contract that allows you trash an intrigue, then you draw a card and then you get another intrigue, or or you have just cards that allow you to draw early in the game by losing a troop by paying one Solari. And I think that these two maybe are enough to snowball the game. Like these two like mechanics, like if you luck into it, and his win rate is pretty high. Like sure, he's at a low play rate, right? So if his play rate goes up, you expect his win rate to come down a bit. But even if it comes down to Esma's level of like it drops by 2%, I still think like it's really good, right? So not really sure why Pyther is good, but Pyther is better than what people think he is, right? And I do expect like after this data published, like more people will play Pyther. Okay, if you look down the data, there are other interesting things to talk about. Maybe you can talk about like Chani, low play rate, decent win rate. Steelsman also low play rate, decent win rate. And then after that, you have like the popular dealers like Muad'Dib and Gurney. So let me just move all of this up a little bit. So we have Muad'Dib. So Mid-Dip and Gurney are not as good as people think they are. Okay, so Muad'Dib and Gurney used to be very good because one of the major ways to snowball the game is to buy a good card. However, that is not the only way you can win games now, or it's not like one of the only snowball ways. I guess like there are a lot of cards that are playable, and also maybe the card quality in general is higher, and you don't need high precision to buy, and maybe worms are also not a key factor. So like this full-on combat build is also not as scary. But whatever it is, Dip and Gurney are not doing great. They're not doing terrible. They're still playable. I think like anything around 20% is still playable. So like anything from Margot all the way to which is like 19.1%, all the way to what Muad'Dib was at 22.6%. I think they are all like playable, but they are not great, right? And also their abilities do not generate resources. So as such, you are a little bit more stuck in that aspect, and yeah, and your ways of snowball are purely through cards, and if you don't get the right cards, I guess you'll struggle. And I guess it's interesting to think about. So Dip and Gurney not as good as people think they are, and don't have the ability to generate resources. Yep. So other here, I think like Fate is interesting. Fate used to be playable in Uprising, but now it's like not doing great as well. But I guess it's relatively still playable. But Shaddam, Jessica are low, and then you have like Gaius, which is played quite a fair bit, and his win rate is quite low. I don't think anyone has figured out Gaius. However, I do think Gaius might be good in some situations, but I don't think people have figured out the situations which Gaius is good, and I don't think that people are picky enough to pick him in that situations. So they haven't figured out, and they're picking Gaius in too many situations. I do think Gaius has a very, like, if you like to buy spice from slows and not engage in anything, like Gaius is like a very good leader to do that. And maybe like when you look at second place results, maybe like you'll find that like Gaius might do decently. Like some of these like might be good to finish second, but might not good to be win the game. But I think like winning the game is the most important thing. So I talk about it from this angle. So this is our win rate data. And let's move on to position data. Oh, this is from my old. So I was using this for some other. I was using this sheet for some other things. Just okay. And copy the pivot table down. Okay, let's talk about position data. So talk about it from color. So position, and then win rate. So this is D54 divided by H54, and this equals to D54. So let me just sort it in terms of red, green, yellow, blue. So this first position, second, third, fourth. It's 4 numbers, you don't really need a color code, but I think this is easier to see. Okay, so position data, right? So we have 4th position, highest win rate, and you have early positions, lowest win rate, second position, worst win rate. Okay, so let's talk about this first. Okay, so first things first, when we're talking about positions, right? When you have 4th position and 3rd position with high win rates, generally it suggests that leader picks influence win rate a lot, because that is their biggest advantage. So one other hypothesis about it is that like because of tier 3 combats, like 3rd position and 4th position are very good because they have like highline access, or they can like choose like how they want to like deploy on these big turns the best, right? But historically, I think that 3rd position actually suffers, 4th position actually suffers, and 1st and 2nd position historically in Uprising actually do better. And one of the reasons why is that So first position, right? What is your advantage? Your advantage is that you're first to buy, right? And being first to buy actually is very significant because of frame kit. Frame kit allows you to cycle and have a good buy. Alright, so when you go frame kit, you cycle, you have a good buy, and you see the card immediately like round 2 or round 3. So this whole process is really very good, and you get this advantage that way, right? And at second position, right, you are early in buy, but you don't have first dips on frame kit. So like your buy is not insane in any way. There are still draw spots, but it's not like you play Seek Allies, which is a 0 persuasion card and you draw. It's like you must play 1 persuasion card to draw, or you play a dagger to Assembly Hall, right? Which is, I guess, decent in some situations, right? But you are early in buy. But I think historically, like, why it's good is you're most of the time you're first to hooks, right? And then you have third position. That has nothing really to talk about unless you're maybe you're first to act tier 3, and then you have fourth position, which first to pick. And I think like first to pick is very significant, and I think because of that, I think that is significant enough to push the first position win rate. So being first to pick, right? So when we're removing 10 leaders now, maybe with whatever leaders are left, like maybe you are one of the few players who are left with like one of these S tier or A tier leaders, maybe the likelihood they win is just a lot higher, right? So being first to pick is important, and as such, right, for the new rank season, I need to go make sure that this announcement is in the mod. Is that I think we will be removing less leaders, and this is to just improve early positions, right? And also yeah, right, we'll remove less leaders, and then this hopefully will improve the win rate of first or second position. And I guess if you're in second position, the win rate actually, to be honest, this win rate spread is relatively acceptable. I think it got to a point where like it could be like 20 to 28%. I think the win rate, that's how much the win rate varied. But here your spread actually is not too bad, and I don't think that any major changes or major balancing changes need to be enacted. Other things that was considered, I need to go and put this in also, is that so we remove blind pick. This also aims to improve early positions, so that you can pick leaders in early positions based on like what the players in later positions have picked. And I think so introduce open picks. Okay, so here we have our position data, and this is what we're gonna do for the new rank season. Okay, and finally, let's talk about win rate by position. I won't talk about all the leaders and all the positions, but let's just look at what is interesting. So here with the leaders, count of placements, then we can filter it by color. So then you have, let's say, let's look at first position. So first position, you have the 82 divided by H82. So if you're wondering what to do in first position, if you see Staban, you should definitely pick it. Like 36%. And the other leaders that are good, I don't think detract too much from like the A tier leaders. Paita is good, Esma is good, Fenring, Liat, Amber, Kota. So you can see all the leaders that were good generally are good in this position as well. In this position, like you can pick Chani and be fine, Steelsman is fine, Muad'Dib is fine, and Irulan is fine as well. So you can see that there are actually a bunch of leaders that you can pick. Alright. So generally pick anything first position. Pick A/S, or you can pick things like Irulan or Dib, Steers, and Chani. So I think these are all fine picks. I think my suspicion is that oh, I need to unhide this. So in terms of second position, I expect it to be quite similar in a lot of ways. Here we see Staban, Kota, Esma, Fenring, Liat all doing okay. Steelsman seems to be good in second position. Paita as well. So second position, take A/S or Steelsman or Amber, I guess. Alright, it looks that way. Maybe even Chani. I guess Dib is somewhat pickable. Gurney, yeah. So second position, you probably still pick A or S, or then you pick like Steelsman, Chani, Dib, or Gurney. And you can see some of the leaders have quite bad win rates. But also you can like Irulan's position 1 win rate to position 2 win rate is so significant. Like you can see like Irulan is okay to pick in position 1, position 2 like don't touch her. Interesting. And then in third position, I think so once again Fenring, Kota, Esma, Liat good, Staban good, Paita good. So nothing really significant changes. Amber still seems to be good. Chani seems to be fine. So my assessment of it is like Chani is decent, Amber seems to be decent as well. Pick A or S, and also you can consider if all of them are not available, I guess you still can pick Dib, Amber, or Chani. But likelihood is that you want to pick your A or S, right? And in fourth position, which is blue. Here you have whatever your S tier leaders are, they are. I expect the Amber stats to be not as great. Lower Pyro on A. So you probably can pick any of the S tier leaders. Or Esma. Then the A tier leaders are fine, but you probably want to pick the S tier leaders. And the S tier leaders, we have Staban, Hasmir, Paita, and Kota. So Kota, Hasmir, Paita, Staban, right? And Esma is fine as well. And then Liat and Amber are like slightly below. And so I guess if you come to this point and they're wondering, I think Amber is like surprisingly good in like various positions as well, and maybe it's like not. Yeah, maybe it's just like commanders are good, right? And we're interested to see like when the play pattern evolves, like whether she is still good. Yeah, I can see some of these leaders really struggling. Steersman is still somewhat playable. Alright, so I think overall you can see that there are some leaders that seem to be always playable, but like the S tier leaders and the A tier leaders are so much stronger than the rest, and I feel that like this is what like the meta would revolve around these 7 leaders. I can't believe Amber is here, but we'll have to get more data on Amber to see how she is. So Amber already has like 500 games, and I guess out of the 4,000 games, like 1 in every 8 game you'll see her. But assuming that she's removed from the pool half of the time, so maybe 1 in every like when she's in the pool, you'll see her picked like half of the time, which is pretty significant. Expect the number to go up. And with that, I've come to the end of the video. If you have any questions, do leave it in the comments. I'll park the data into a Google Sheet and share it. And if you have any questions, you can drop in the comments and I will be glad to answer it. After this, I'll be talking a little bit more about strategy videos. I think I wanted to hold off on strategy videos, at least for the start of the Bloodlines. But I think now is a good time to talk about it, and I hope you enjoy this content, and if you do like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you around.